You know you're getting old when you're having a braai with mates and you start talking about investment options and they start saying if you want to be rich in the future, invest in retirement homes. And that's precisely a conversation I was having this last weekend. But investing in a retirement home is kind of complicated and quite expensive for those of us with limited capital. What about buying shares in a company that is doing it for you? In the same way as you're not going to buy your own shopping centre, but you may very well invest in the company that owns shopping centres, and in so doing get the benefit of their professional management, their expertise, and you simply harvest the returns off the top of that. Well, Pembury Lifestyle Group, which beat this drum in front of me at the JSE just a month ago, is known for its 7 school campuses. It's looking to diversify, going from cradle, that being schools, to just before the grave in terms of the retirement homes I was just referring to. Founder of the Pembury Lifestyle Group is Andrew McLachlan, and he joins me this evening on the MoneyMakers. I mean, going from schools, which is an essential public service in South Africa today, private schooling, big demand, into the retirement home industry. Those are opposite sides of the same life, I suppose, opposite sides of the same coin even.
Yes, thank you for having me, Bruce. Essentially, they're both in the service industry, and the retirement industry is exactly where Pembury Lifestyle Group started in 1999, and that's where we gained all our experience in developing retirement homes. And it was only in the last 3 years that we acquired certain properties that weren't appropriate for retirement lodges, and we thought, well, yes, I've always had a passion for the school industry and education, but why is it so expensive to get into the education industry? And a big cost of that is, yes, the teaching, which we will never compromise on, but it is the campuses. So we were able to take these 2 or 3 properties and do what we call a test run and convert them immediately into schools using the infrastructure and doing it at a quarter of the cost of what a traditional school would be. And that was in 2015, where we had started with 300 pupils, and subsequently we found more premises, and we're gaining momentum, and we're on 1,800 pupils. And in the coming year, for January, as our forecast said in the prospectus, we're on line to do over 4,000 pupils.
There's exponential growth happening in that education sector.
Yes.
We're seeing Advotech become more aggressive in terms of its acquisition strategy, perhaps spurred on by Curo and its voracious appetite for not only buying existing schools but building schools. These are your competitors. They're long established. These are the big dogs in the industry. How do you fight fire with that particular fire?
We actually don't see any competition in the market with them. We just see as they are part of the market, but the appetite and the actual demand is immense. The numbers have been mentioned before. We have 12.5 million school-going children. Of those, 2.5 million can afford private schooling. Of those 2.5 million, only 500,000 are attending private schools, including the Advotech and Curo models. So 2 million children are looking for private schooling. And we find that the Pembury model is really garnered towards being affordable. So where we can come
what is affordable in the Pembury
affordable
world?
is between 20 and 50,000 rand a year. So yes, the actual private education sector is offering school fees now between 70 and 180,000 rand a year, but I believe that that actual sector is going to be saturated, and maybe is to find schools like that or start schools like that, because that is still for the affluent South African. So we're quite excited that we can do this whole model between 20 and 50,000 and still make a school work and offer appropriate great education. We're going to actually offer a product to the masses.
Okay, so here you've got an environment in which you can educate kids for between 20 and 50,000 rand a year. Class sizes, what's your maximum?
Our class sizes at present are maximum 28.
At present 28, with opportunities to expand, or is 28?
That is our policy at the moment, is up to 28.
All right. I mean, that's quite a modest classroom size for that sort of price point.
Yeah.
How are you going to maintain that? Because these schools are infernally expensive to operate. Teachers are quite demanding. Teachers in that private education sector also highly mobile. So how do you attract the appropriate teaching staff to service 28 unruly school kids? And all school kids, let's face it, are unruly.
You know, our school model really focuses on schools that are mid-sized schools. And the environment is very important to parents, that they don't always want to be part of a large school environment of 2,500 children. They want that sort of, we call it that intimate relationship with the teachers and the pupils.
So community models, community-based schools?
Yes. So what I'm saying is that teachers are actually attracted to our schools because we empower them to teach and to do their job properly. And we take the appropriate actions should pupils not act appropriately. If we find in the government models and that, it's very difficult sometimes for them to act necessary and where they need to be. So we have always attracted the right teachers. We've never had a problem attracting teachers, strangely enough, with our new model and with the startup. To give you an example, in Hartbeespoort, we had applications for 6 posts, and we had about 120 applications for that particular.
Are these teachers desperate to get out of the public system into the private system, or are you drawing from the private schooling sector as well?
We're drawing from, I think, private and government, a mix. I think teachers just want to feel that they are well appreciated and can teach in the way they were actually trained to teach.
Are you going from kindergarten all the way through to matric?
We go from grade 3, 5-year-olds.
What you're doing is you're going from sub A, you're going to grade 3 to
pre-primary,
okay,
primary and high school,
okay.
and we grow into the high school.
Okay, so how many classes of matrics have you had so far?
We're going to have our first class of matrics in the next year.
And that's the litmus test really in terms of private schooling, because if you're not getting 100% pass rates in the private school system, parents get a little bit nervous because they're paying big bucks, and big bucks is a relative thing, to get their kids pushed through the exam system.
No, I totally understand. So we still have to go through that test. But I must, just from the schools growing year to year, we're in our 3rd year, and the existing schools that were open in 2015, who are doubling in numbers every year, says a lot to us that the parents are happy. They're happy with our education, and their kids.
They're desperate. I mean, there's an opportunity, and I mean this is a regulated sector. You've got to have extensive licenses, but there is an opportunity for charlatans to be operating in this sector, and I'm sure that we're going to see examples of those coming through in the future, and that's something you've got to guard against as well. Brand is everything.
No, certainly we have to protect on that, and but we're just seeing even in our grades that are grade 10 and lower, we're just seeing that their results. And from the headmasters that I've appointed, who are from top schools, that is the way we do operate. We do headhunt top headmasters and bring them that we're not headmasters, but perhaps deputy or senior teachers who are excited to take on the schools. They are very excited to make sure their children, and I've just attended prize givings in the last year and seen the way the kids have responded and the success results. So I am very confident that our first lot of matrics are going to be just as successful as the private schools are.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in Kimberley.
Okay, to Kimberley Boys High.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so how does that influence the way you structure a school business?
Well, it's come a long way. I mean,
not allowed to beat kids anymore.
I'm in the property sector. Went to university in Free State, and then moved up to Johannesburg. And after having children, and then in the late 90s, seeing the whole education landscape changing, and then some private schools popping up, I did believe that why is schooling so expensive? Even at that stage, it was maybe 4,000 or 5,000 rand a month. So those current schools are now 10,000, 12,000 rand a month. Yeah. I still believe you could do it a lot cheaper. To afford schooling to the masses, and that is why it's always been in the back of my mind in the last 3-4 years.
Are your kids still at school?
I've got one child at school, and one of them is going to actually be a teacher.
Okay, but here's the litmus test for me. Is your kid who's still at school at a Pembury school?
No, they're actually at a private school. The only reason is because I don't offer matric or grade 11 yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, and will they be eligible?
But my daughter, who's studying to be a teacher, is a trainee student teacher at our school already.
Okay.
And on site, working.
As long as you're never accused of nepotism, of course, when she
Yes.
becomes headmistress one day, I'm sure she'll be she'll justifiably earn the post. So you're going to be by 2018. You're going to have 4,000 kids in school. How does that grow? Do we see it doubling every year? What are the plans?
We forecast in our actual prospectus of a 60% growth. In
60 or 16?
60,
Yeah.
because our schools are starting from scratch. The first year what we started was 250 children, and in the first 2 to 3 we found that a 60% growth. But we are now on the lookout for opportunities for schools to turn around. And since
buying existing schools that may have fallen on tough times,
just they don't have the capex spend
Yeah.
to actually expand, but they've got numbers that are bursting at the seams. They're putting 40 kids in a class. And we have now visited various opportunities, and since our listing, a lot have been.
Your listing, I mean, what's the market appetite to provide you with the capital to be able to fund the sort of growth that you're envisaging?
You know, since our listing, it has opened up immensely. We have now various meetings arranged with people that maybe be skeptical and said, well, you can only do it the way the other listed companies have done. If you don't do it that way, you can't do it. And I think I'm very much an entrepreneur and a business person to say, this is a space with great opportunity. You don't have to do it one way. We can do it another way and bring down the costs. So we are now entertaining meetings and believe that we're going to have the necessary investments to expand.
These kids are going to need to retire one day. That's the other side of the business. In a minute, how's that side of the business going? Are you growing that, or is the focus on the schooling side of the business for now?
The schooling side of the business was needed to list because we're bursting at the seams. The retirement I have had for 18 years, and have realized that due to our Pembury listing and the brand has actually filled up completely. Just based on other listings in New Zealand and Australia are very successful, because South Africa doesn't have a comparative model. We decided to introduce the retirement, and you know, with retirement villages and retirement homes, they've got waiting lists. So anything that tells you you've got a waiting list, why not take that model and let's roll it out?
Is that the plan there as well? The same sort of exponential growth as you're planning in schools?
Exactly. You know, I know they both maybe opposite ends of the spectrum and sound.
Well, there's deep need in both markets.
Exactly, they're very defensive models, and regardless of what happens in South African politics or anything, both models are very strong in growth. Obviously, Pembury as an AltX listing, we just need time to do our thing and to present our first set of results. And I believe on those results, the share price is going to follow us.
Oh, he's talking share prices, new chief executives, new listings. Let's see whether or not he regrets the statement of saying the share price will follow the results. We'll watch this space very closely. And McLachlan, thank you very much indeed. Chief Executive of Pembury Leisure Group. Big focus on growing private education. Big focus on private residential homes for the elderly. Don't scoff at it, you may need one day. Till next time, thank you so much for watching the Moneymakers. Good night.